Hey, good afternoon. We're here with Charles Fawcett from Twisted Automotive. How are you doing, Charles?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, good to see you, Mike.
And you. Thank you very much for taking the time to give us your experiences today. Looking forward to it. So, if we head straight in, and if you could give us a little bit of background as to who you are, what you do, and your business, and how long you've been doing it for, please.
Twisted Automotive is based in Thirsk in North Yorkshire. The business started in 2000. I ran it alongside another business I operated. 2008, it became full time. We moved into Thirsk onto the industrial estate. Having started in my Wendy house in the back garden, moved into my lounge, and then eventually into a garage adjoined to the house I lived in. We eventually took the plunge and got a little industrial unit in Thirsk. We build, prepare, modify Land Rover Defender, the traditional classic Land Rover Defender. We've spent the 20 years, in essence, engineering, redeveloping, and honing our offering. We take a stock standard vehicle, and what leaves the factory is a phenomenal change from that original humble vehicle, but it's still absolutely, to its core, a Land Rover Defender. It just stops better, it turns better, it handles better, it performs better, it's a little bit quieter, a bit more refined, things fit better, they don't leak as much, hopefully not at all, and so on. And we ship these things all over the world.
Brilliant. I've seen some photos online, and they do look like amazing vehicles. So 20 years or so, it sounds like an interesting journey to get to where you are today, especially coming from a Wendy house. But something I do like to ask people is when they come on is getting their experiences over the last 2 or 3 years of COVID, and obviously how that affected the business. What was the biggest impact? How did that affect you for you guys?
Ultimately, we're still a small business, and at that point we were a single site factory with a small customer area. Everything happened pretty much from this single site. We did have a second business running alongside that did a similar thing at the time, operating from the same industrial estate, but Twisted in essence was single site. The other business was the second site. COVID came along, and I'll be honest, I didn't know, probably like a lot of people, I didn't know what I was dealing with. I didn't know what the effect was going to be. So we probably had a few weeks of trying to work out what was going on. The phone stopped ringing, customers stopped chasing us. There was no longer an urgency for anything. Supply of product dried up. Lots of other businesses that we dealt with weren't available. Staff were nervous. It was a really challenging and interesting time. And I think the first few weeks for most business owners, they would either panic through not knowing what was going on, and I certainly did for a little while, or they would grow because they happened to be in the right sector.
Yeah.
The reality is, as a business, the engineering element of the business could continue. As a business owner, we had to make the right decision for our team. So we dropped down from, I don't know, 45 or 50 employees to probably 8 working every day, giving everybody space to operate, making sure that only the key people were in that needed to be in. Some work from home where possible, but a lot of our business is hands-on, it's physical. So for some months we ran at a very, very low capacity. And actually, it was in a sense a blessing, because what it did for me is it allowed me to kind of step off the hamster wheel and look at things from a different perspective. And in business, you never get that opportunity. Day in, day out, you're on the same wheel, or in the same dinghy, hopefully all rowing in the same direction. But you can't stop rowing. You certainly can't jump out for a swim. You are in it and on it, and you've got to be focused. But COVID, if I look back now, gave us the opportunity to step back, take a look, reappraise where we were as a business and what we were trying to do. And in fact, the kind of 2 years of COVID, we managed to buy and redevelop our first showroom. We bought a building in Thirsk, the old ATS Tyre Centre. Found out some history. It was an old cinema once, redeveloped that as a showroom. We bought a marine engineering business on the south coast and created Twisted Marine. We created licensed businesses in the States, the Middle East, and we created a licensed business producing an electrified Twisted Defender. I'm not sure how we did all that, but I guess what enabled us to do it was the time to think of things a little differently. Oh, sorry, and we actually sold the other business we had at the time, which operated on the industrial estate as well. So we sold one, bought one, and created a few, and came out the other side with a far wider appeal, a greater offering, and a stronger looking business, you know, having true showroom retail space. I think we ended up with a showroom in Kensington as well, and I think we managed to do that in that same period. So we went from single site factory with very little retail space to multiple sites with the ability to talk to more people.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you the next sort of question around one or two actions you may have taken in COVID that have stuck, but you've just reflected on that it was a productive time in terms of working on the business and not in the business.
Yeah, the in the business bit almost stopped. So
yeah,
we were able to, you know, customers were fabulous. We were all in essence in the same position. You know, nobody knew when things could start again. And in fact, we had that false start and then it all stopped again, you know. So our customers are amazing. They're all over the world. They buy from us a product they can't buy anywhere else. They are proper, decent people who have an affection for Land Rover Defender. And so actually, you know, in good times and bad, as a business, our customers have been our backbone, really. You know, when it's not like we're selling widgets or you know, things that need to be stacked high and sold for pennies. We have this, you know, wonderful group of customers who can who we enjoy working with, and they enjoy working with us. So we were and are very fortunate that they always support, because at the end of the day, what we're supplying to them, they really want.
Yes, can't get it anywhere else.
There's very little logic in an expensive Land Rover Defender, but there's a lot of logic in the benefits of an expensive Land Rover Defender, and we can maybe talk about those further down the line. But it's a really interesting mix of people involved.
Yeah, sounds it. Good share. Thank you for that. So in terms of where you are now, what does the future look like for you, and what do you see as the main challenges going ahead? Obviously, there's various things happening in the world. Whatever's predictable.
When Twisted started, I remember very early days the whole Twin Towers, you know, there was all sorts of turmoil back then, and then when we moved into our first unit, 2008, the world seemed to fall apart again, and here we are, having gone through COVID. We've now got some uncontrollable, really interesting challenges around us. I think the next 6 months are going to be very interesting generally. I think there are some, there needs to be an element of caution applied, but I think there are some great opportunities out there as well. I don't fear the future, I just see it as a challenge, and a business needs to remain flexible enough and able to sidestep in reality. But hopefully they've got hold of things now. Rishi hopefully has got his got his hands on the right buttons, as it were, and
Yeah,
is pulling the right strings. But it's certainly this last few months has been interesting, hasn't it?
certainly has. We had as a company, there was a share the other day. The chap said, "Oh yeah, 2008 recession. Oh no, I think it was the COVID pandemic. So just we're not getting involved in that. We're not getting involved in that. As a business, we just crack on with what we can control." So
Yeah.
I think sounds like a similar sort of mindset, as you say, control the controllables and see things as challenges to overcome.
I think every change is an opportunity. You know, Brexit, for example, I saw that change must only create opportunity. Staying the same, you arguably run out of opportunity. Whether that was the right opinion or not, I don't know, and whether we did the right thing or not, who knows. But there are always opportunities out there. It's just a matter of being in a position to find them, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. Another good share. So in terms of moving on to yourself then as a business owner, excuse me, and sharing with us your biggest learning that you've had in your journey to date, if there's one that you can pick out. I appreciate there may be quite a few.
I don't think I could pick one. I think every single day I learn something. Every single day people amaze me for all sorts of reasons. I think if there was one, and I've talked about it many times before, I was presented an opportunity by a supplier to buy a significant amount of stock at one point, and it was completely and utterly the wrong thing to do in one sense. The purchase was greater than the turnover of the whole company that same period, and the purchase was of a product which was potentially old stock, could potentially depreciate, and nobody was particularly keen on lending any money at that time. The supplier then tried to stop us from taking the order because they realized they'd done the wrong thing in offering it in the first place. We kind of dug our heels in and found a way of making it all work. And that, what am I trying to say? That sometimes you've got to let your heart control you to a point. It's not always about the head. If you look at things too much in a practical sense or a financial sense or on a spreadsheet, sometimes the numbers don't make sense. But if you absolutely believe in what you're trying to achieve, you know, let the heart lead a little bit, and you can make some really great decisions. We've made some really bum decisions as well, I have to say. But probably the biggest decision was that big purchase of stock. I'm still sat on stock now. It's increased in value dramatically, and it's carried us and enabled us to build some premises and buy some businesses and do all sorts of other things, which I probably would not have been able to do. So that one opportunity, which would have been very easy to turn down because it looked too big, actually over the following 6 years has enabled us to do an awful lot more. So dig your heels in when you need to dig your heels in, be brave, be a bit bullish sometimes, and have a go, because you know, we don't win for saying no, do we?
Correct. Bit of heart and logic there.
I'm not sure which drove Mose. I think the heart and a little bit of pig-headedness probably.
It's worked out for you. Good share. Thank you very much for that one. So maybe the answer to this next question might reflect what you've just said. But if you were to go back in time, meet yourself at 18, or perhaps meet a younger person just starting out in their business career, what would be the best piece of advice you could give, knowing what you know?
I think it has to be to surround yourself with the right people. People in any business are the business. We're very lucky in that part of our business is driven by our customers and their dreams and desires and crazy wishes, which we love to satisfy. But without the right team, without the right people in the right places, it can be a super lonely place, trying to steer the ship, as it were. I've met some incredible people, both staff and customer, over the period that Twisted's been operating, and without certain people in those two groups, I wouldn't be here today. So find the right people, don't just find people, find the right people. It's imperative. And it might be, it might be employee number one and the only ever employee. Make sure it's the right one. It might be that you need 50 or 100 of them. Just make sure they're the right ones. And probably don't do what I've done at times. I've let things drag on a while. Things haven't been quite right. And rather than making a sharp decision and moving on, I've kind of been soft. But I have to say, I am surrounded now by brilliant people, and they are all bought in, and they're all rowing in the same direction. And that's really important when you're in a little boat.
Definitely the power of teamwork and a group. Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you for that. So what inspires you to do what you do, or what inspires you currently? It may be sharing something if you do reading or listen to anything, or it could be friends, family, your team, as you've just mentioned there, your customers.
It's probably a little bit of all. I like to do what people say can't be done. There was a time in the past where various professionals that I chose to go and speak to said, don't do it. It's the wrong thing to do. Walk away. They all gave me very solid reasons as to why I should listen to them, and I ignored them all, and that was probably the best thing I did. So sometimes being told no is a good thing. I think we as a business, you've got to be open-minded, and you've got to take advice. You've got to take whatever you can get whenever you can get it, but picking the right bit of information to follow through with is probably the challenge. Yeah,
good stuff. Yeah, you've got to it's the gold or the things that are relevant to you that you can take forward and say, yeah, that works for me. I'll have that and I'll leave that.
I think I've sat down with many people, whether they've been customers or just inquirers. I've sat down with a lot of people, and I love talking, and I love hearing how they've done what they've done. And sometimes it doesn't even need to be a planned conversation. There are these wonderful networking events you can go to, and this and that and that. But sometimes actually just chatting with someone who's done something, a light-hearted cup of tea, have a conversation. There'll be a little nugget of information in there that actually rings true with you as a business owner, if you like. And those little nuggets, you need to keep hold of them because they're super useful. Definitely. We're not doing anything new. We're not reinventing the wheel at the end of the day.
That's right. Good stuff. Thank you very much. So lastly, if there's any latest news around what you're doing, you've covered a fair bit, but if there's something you'd like to share, feel free, whether it's a website to go to or anything to have a look at or anything you're up to out in the big wide world there, just let us know.
Not specifically. I think Twisted Automotive, it's been around 22 years. We have always worked purely with Land Rover Defender. We have some new products and some new vehicles coming online over the next 6 months. Twisted Marine was created 2 years ago. That's a really interesting space. We're on growing our little network of marine engineering businesses, and we've developed a range of sports craft, which we are now selling through Twisted Marine. But otherwise, Twisted is just this really cool little space, which in Thurskill, North Yorkshire, it's a little unexpected. Yeah. And I would welcome anybody to come and visit and see what we get up to, because it is actually quite interesting. There's some very cool stuff going on in the workshop right now.
Definitely. Sounds like it. I encourage people to go check it out. Charles, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I hope it continues to go from strength to strength for you.
We'll try. Nice to see you.
Cheers.
Cheers, Mike.